It wasn't supposed to be like this. Halloween was always fun for me, candy, costumes, staying up late. But this year, things were different. Mom and Dad had to rush to the hospital to be with Grandma. She'd gotten worse, and they didn't have time to take me with them. They told me to stay at Grandma's house for the night, that they'd be back first thing in the morning. I didn't mind at first. I was 13, practically an adult, right? But as the sun set and the house grew darker, something about Grandma's old place made me feel uneasy. The house creaked in a way that made it sound alive, like it was breathing with me. The wind outside whistled through the cracks in the windows, and the old grandfather clock in the hallway ticked so loudly it was like a heartbeat echoing through the empty rooms. I'd been watching TV, trying to distract myself, but after a while, the signal went out, leaving nothing but static on the screen. I groaned, grabbing my phone. No messages from Mom or Dad. I tried calling, but the reception here was always terrible. Frustrated, I tossed the phone on the couch and stood up, deciding I'd make a snack to pass the time. I walked into the kitchen, but just as I opened the fridge, I heard a soft knock at the front door. I froze, the hairs on the back of my neck standing up. It was almost midnight. No one would be out trick-or-treating this late. I stood still, listening. Nothing. I shook my head. Probably just the wind, I thought. But as I turned back to the fridge, the knock came again, louder this time. My heart skipped a beat. Hello? I called out, my voice shaky. No response. I slowly walked to the front door, my footsteps barely making a sound on the old wooden floor. I peeked through the peephole, half expecting to see nothing, but to my surprise, there was someone, or something, standing there. It looked like a man, but his face was hidden beneath a large, wide-brimmed hat. His clothes were old, tattered, and dark. He didn't move, just stood there, facing the door. My stomach twisted with fear. I knew I shouldn't open the door. Every instinct told me not to. But I did. I don't know why. I think I was more curious than anything. I unlocked the door and opened it just a crack. Can I help you? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. The man didn't speak. He just stood there, motionless, his face hidden in shadow. I couldn't see his eyes, but I could feel them on me, watching me. The silence stretched on, thick and suffocating. I was about to slam the door shut when, without warning, he raised his hand. It was pale, bone-white, with long, thin fingers. In his hand was an old, rusted lantern. The flame inside flickered weakly, casting strange, unnatural shadows on the porch. My breath caught in my throat as the lantern's light flickered, and for a brief second, I thought I saw something behind him, something moving in the darkness, just beyond the edge of the porch light. I slammed the door shut and locked it, my hands trembling. What the hell was that? I backed away from the door, my heart racing, but as I turned to run back to the living room, I heard it, a soft scraping sound, like metal dragging against wood. It was coming from the back of the house. My blood ran cold. I had locked the front door, but the back door was still wide open. I bolted toward the kitchen, but as I reached the doorway, the scraping sound stopped. I froze, every muscle in my body tense, listening. The house was silent again. Too silent. I reached for my phone, fumbling in my pocket, but before I could even unlock the screen, the lights flickered and went out, plunging the house into darkness. The only light now came from the faint glow of the moon through the kitchen window, casting long, twisted shadows across the floor. That's when I saw it, a figure standing in the doorway to the living room, its outline barely visible in the dark. My heart stopped. It wasn't the man from the porch. This thing was different. Taller. Its limbs were long and bent in unnatural angles, its head cocked to the side as if it was watching me, studying me. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't move. The figure took a step toward me, its foot dragging against the floor with that same scraping sound I'd heard before. I stumbled back, knocking over a chair, my pulse pounding in my ears. I turned to run, but I barely made it 2 steps before something cold and slimy wrapped around my ankle, pulling me to the ground. I screamed, kicking and thrashing, trying to free myself. I looked down, but there was nothing there, nothing I could see, at least. But the grip tightened, dragging me across the floor toward the figure in the doorway. I clawed at the floorboards, my nails splintering as I fought to pull myself free, but it was no use. The figure was closer now, its face, if you could even call it that, looming over me. Its eyes were hollow, empty black pits, and its mouth stretched into a grin that seemed too wide, too unnatural for its gaunt face. It leaned down, its breath cold against my skin, and whispered in a voice that sounded like 100 whispers at once.
"You let me in."